Hi guys, welcome to 5 Mantra, a complete online entertainment at one place. So here this is Rajesh, Faculty of International Relations. So today we are going to start the new module of International Relations on the platform called 5 Mantra. So now I am going to come with the sub-module of International Relations, that is India's neighborhood policy. So under this India's neighborhood policy, we are going to learn about the bilateral engagements and also multilateral engagements like SAARC with our neighboring countries. So before going to the multilateral engagements, let us have a look upon the bilateral engagements with respective countries. So before going to the bilateral engagements, first we need to know who are our neighbors. So India is a country. Okay, basically our country will be called as subcontinent because of diversified geographical features do we have like a continent. That is why we have a name called subcontinent. So this subcontinent has different countries as its neighbors, which is having different political structure, different economic structure, but a similar ethnicity we shared about, because all the neighbors which we have are once upon the colonies of a colonial ruler called British. So the British rule has unified all the neighboring countries of India with a similar ethnicity, a similar culture and tradition. So with all the neighboring countries we are sharing a similar culture. Okay, let us have a look. First let us know who are these neighbors. So India is surrounded by the neighboring countries like Pakistan, Afghanistan on the northwest, and coming to the east, Nepal, Bhutan and Myanmar, and the China on the top. Okay, and coming to the south we have Sri Lanka, and southwest we have Maldives. So these are the different countries, okay, which are the neighbors of our country. Okay, so before entering into the particular bilateral engagements with different countries, that is our neighboring countries, let us have an overview of our neighboring policy, that is India's neighborhood policy. So in this I am going to explain you the overview and what are the India's perspectives towards its neighbors under different rulers, different prime ministers rule, under different ages to say. So before going to that, I am going to introduce you this topic called India's neighborhood with a background. Okay, let us have a look on the background. So after the end of the partition, that is at the time we got the independence, our country has lost its territory. Okay, that is one eastern territory in the form of East Pakistan, and the western territory, that is northwestern territory in the form of Western Pakistan. So this East Pakistan, which is a Muslim dominated area, has been under the control of West Pakistan. Obviously we have remained a partition at the end of the colonial rule of British. So after the partition, after losing our territories, we sense that the immediate threat to our national security, to our national interests, okay, which may be in the form of economic, political, social. Okay, so in these spheres the immediate threat is posed from our neighbors only. So in order to make this threat voidable, that is nullified, in order to nullify this threat, we have designed a comprehensive neighborhood policy. Okay, and this comprehensive neighborhood policy consists of different dimensions, different dynamics of different perspectives, which I am going to explain you in this video. So this neighborhood policy which is adopted, which is very comprehensive, in order to, this comprehensive policy also aims at creating the opportunities. Okay, creating the opportunities in the fronts of economic, political and security, and overall it ultimately leads to the growth of South Asian regions, because India and its neighboring countries, okay, are the part of South Asian region in a global manner, global picture we see. Okay, so this is the background guys. So let us have a look of neighborhood policy under different prime ministers. Okay, the very first prime minister we are going to talk about, our first prime minister Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru. Okay, and during the regime of Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, we have followed the British policy of neighborhood relations. Like, what do you mean by this British policy on neighborhood relations? See, whenever India is under the colonial control of Britishers, it has followed a neighboring policy which is based on providing security to those neighbors. Okay, so the same policy have been followed by our first Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru, that is our Jawaharlal Nehru is concentrated on providing the security to the smaller state. But here the insight you need to observe is, see, we have the intention to provide the security to our neighboring countries. Perspective has given rise to another misperception, that is, in India's view, all its neighboring countries will be treated in a smaller manner, like to the smaller extent. So which has created a imperialistic atmosphere upon our country, okay, in the eyes of our neighbors. So this has created a sense of insecurity among them. So this has posed the challenge. This means this perspective has resulted into the birth of challenges in our neighborhood policy. So India has limited its external influences to our neighbors only, because it did not extend its external influence on the countries which are other than neighbors during the during the reign of Jawaharlal Nehru. And moreover, the most considerable contribution of our first Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru is his non-alignment policy towards the Cold War politics. So not only India, with his effort, he also made the newly independent neighboring countries, okay, those newly independent neighboring countries have been kept far away from the Cold War politics, as the sphere of all these newly independent neighboring countries have been brought under the sphere of non-alignment movement by our country under the leadership of Jawaharlal Nehru. So under his rule, these are the important prospects of neighborhood policy by India. So coming to the next Prime Minister, that is our Indira Gandhi. So in her regime, Indira Gandhi insisted that whatever the challenges, whatever the issues we have got with our neighboring countries should be solved bilaterally, means face to face, okay, without giving any scope and opportunity to the intervention of third party, that may be international organizations or the country which is other than the bilateral countries. So this is her insistence. And apart from that, India, during her rule, India has emerged as a regional hegemon, because see, the era of Indira Gandhi, if you observe carefully, it is the era of many more transformations, okay, many more reforms. So we have started our journey towards making ourselves apt to the changed world dynamics in all the fronts, either maybe the political fronts, we have the emergency trends in our regime, economic trends, we have seen the adoption of socialist pattern of economy and allowance of the FDIs. In the very first step, not completely, but the very first word of allowing the FDIs, that foreign investments, was started in her regime. So the socially and in every dimensions, we have seen many reforms. So this made India interesting in the theatre of world. So it finally led to the hegemony of India in the South Asian region. So, and it also emerged as the security manager in the South Asian region. Okay, so in order to maintain its tag of security manager, India has used its military. That is, military got intervened when there is a situation where the India's national interests got threatened. So these are the distinguished prospects. That is very new prospects we have got under her regime. Next, Rajiv Gandhi. So in a broad perspective, like in a broad view, if I take up the case of Rajiv Gandhi, unfortunately the relations between India and its neighbor countries have deteriorated because of India's external interference in the internal affairs of Sri Lanka and Maldives. So in the Sri Lanka, we have initially supported the group called LTT, that is Liberation of Tamil Tiger Salem, okay, with the instrument called RAW, and later on we have withdrawn our support to that organization, and we have focused in developing our relationship with the Sri Lanka. This has messed up. This has created some confusion in the relations with the Sri Lanka. And in the Maldives also. In the Maldives also, we have, lent the support. We have lent our support to the, democratic regime, existed democratic regime against the rebels, where consequently the rebels have got the opportunity to form the government, where the relation between, it has resulted the deterioration between the relation deterioration in the relation between India and Maldives. So these mistakes have costed us to the lot extent, whereby the neighbors has tilted towards China, have lost trust upon us, and it has ultimately deteriorated our economic relationship with our neighbors. So neighbor began to take the bilateral issues to the international fronts, began to invite the third party interventions to resolve the bilateral issues with India. So this was the picture under the Rajiv Gandhi in the concept of India and its neighborhood policy. And this picture has became better in the next Prime Minister, that is P.V. Narasimha. P.V. Narasimha, ex-Prime Minister. So we know him as a person who introduced the LPG reforms, economic reforms, that is liberalization, privatization, globalization, which led to the opening up of Indian economy to the global economy. That is, we started importing the goods and services from other countries at a rapid pace, and we also associated ourselves to the global economy with our imports. So we have become a part of the global market under his rule. So this could be achieved only with the support of neighbors. So under his rule, the neighborhood policy took a drastic shape when compared to the neighborhood policy under Rajiv Gandhi. So under his regime, he insisted that India should not interfere into the internal affairs of the neighboring countries, and also I have already told you earlier that he changed the face of Indian economy, and he changed the situation that India has prepared itself to engage with its neighboring countries mainly on economic fronts. Okay, and whatever the relation got deteriorated has revived from this initial point. That point is economic front. So on the economic front, by opening our economy, by making our market subjected to the free trade, okay, that has served as the initial point for the revival of relations with the neighboring countries, and this has got followed by the consecutive governments mainly under the Prime Minister called I.K. Gujral. So he contributed a lot to our India's foreign policy towards its neighbors, because see, I.K. Gujral, he is the first person who introduced a proper doctrine, that is called Gujral doctrine, okay, which has defined the shape of India's neighborhood policy, which is based on two aspects, that is non-reciprocity and generosity. The term called non-reciprocity, see, whatever the adverse implications we could get from the neighbors from a situation, so we have to show ourselves, express ourselves with the reaction that includes a kindness, that includes a cooperative, coordination, generosity. So in such a way, we should not retaliate in a negative side. So we have to express ourselves the positive intent towards our neighbors even though the situation got worse. So in this way, we could able to come forward to make the situation better with the neighboring countries. So this is the perspective which he developed under the Gujral doctrine, and obviously it got successful, and we have got the revival of neighborhood relations with our neighboring states. Okay, and at the same time during his rule only, we have got the concept of Chinese competition to our country in maintaining the relations with our neighbors. Even China is one of the country with the same neighbors as the India has. India has the same neighbors where the China also has. So obviously during in the age of P.V. Narasimha Rao and I.K. Gujral, China is one of the main competitor, mainly in the economic trends and political trends, expanding its influence over our neighboring countries, countering India's dominance, not dominance actually, presence in the fields of neighboring policy. So with this Gujral doctrine, we have effectively countered the Chinese dominance over neighbors, and moreover, wherever the neighbors got tilted towards the China and international friends, so they began to look towards the India as a big brother. So with this intent, he has also developed the doctrine with the intent of India being a big brother, lending its helping hand in the form of line of credit, in the form of shared prospects that is shared prosperity in all the fronts, that is economic fronts, social fronts, political fronts, okay, and also the technological fronts. So, and this doctrine, as I told you, it was based on the non-reciprocity and generosity, and finally India owed itself to build a goodwill, okay, among its neighboring, without leaving any space among the neighbors to develop anti-Indian sentiments. Okay, so leaving a space in the neighbors, which finally led to the build-up of a platform, and that platform is becoming a source for the anti-Indian elements like extremism against India, terrorism against India, fine, and financial crimes against India, deteriorating the India's political, social, economic fronts. So, without leaving such space, the Gujarat doctrine intends, has developed the objectivity not to leave any space among the neighboring countries which may serve as anti-Indian national interests. Okay, so, and he also insisted, just like Indira Gandhi, that the dispute resolution should be based on bilateral engagements only, without allowing the foreign interventions, the third party intervention. And he also insisted to gain mutual trust, okay, with the neighboring states. And he also proclaimed that no territory of South Asian region should be used against the other country in that region. Okay, and that, for example, see, like, we are seeing a geopolitical situation that the Afghanistan is a land in the South Asian region where it is going to be used as a launch pad against the interests of India, against the interests of China by the Western countries. Okay, so this is the situation which is resulting into the deterioration of peace, stability in those regions, and threatening the interests of other countries also nearby in their neighborhood. So this situation has to be seized according to his intent. So that is why he insisted that, he proclaimed that no territory of South Asian region should be used against any other country, and India should not interfere in the internal affairs of its neighborhood states. Okay, so that is why whenever the policy, that is foreign policy with the neighboring countries, which we are going to proclaim during our bilateral engagements or multilateral engagements, we will be very cautious and careful with the less and lower intervention of our country into the affairs of our neighboring countries. So that is the cautious thing we used to observe in the present contemporary dynamics and developments with our neighboring countries. Okay. And the next Prime Minister is our current Prime Minister, Shri Narendra Modi. Okay, so he committed to economic integration of South Asia because he is sharing the prosperity with the other neighboring countries. Okay, on the platform called BIMSTEC, okay, or SARC. Okay, so on the platforms of these two, he is sharing the economic prospects with with our neighboring countries in the South Asian region. So he intends to integrate the South Asian region economically, making, in his regime only, India has signed a lot many free trade agreements with our neighboring countries. That is, most popularly we have the SARC free trade agreement. Okay, so, and he also believes that India is going to lead the regional integration, okay, with an instrument called economy, and he focused on shared prosperity. Apart from this, he gave the thrust upon the trade, that is the trade between the India and neighboring countries, both imports and exports, maintaining the trade balances with the, trying to maintain the trade balances with our neighboring countries, and also very particular about the investments. Attracting the investments to be invested in the country, and also making Indian investments to invest in the neighboring countries such as Nepal, Bhutan, Myanmar, such so. Besides this, he also fosters the connectivity between India and its neighboring countries, like connectivity in the form of air, in the form of land, in the form of river navigations or sea navigation. Okay, so he just focusing upon infrastructure development in order to connect our neighboring countries, so as particularly I can give you a prospect that, see, for focusing on connecting the Myanmar, which is one of the neighboring countries, with a view of connecting the South Asian countries, Southeast Asian markets also. Okay, so this connectivity in near future is going to increase the India's opportunities in its growth, in its economic growth and in its regional growth also in the South Asia. So he focus on fostering the connectivity through constructing the highways and rail networks. So as we go on with the bilateral engagements, bilateral relations between India and its neighboring countries, I am going to explain a separate slide under the fostering connectivity. Whatever the rail projects we are dealing with such country, whatever the highway projects we are dealing with such country, everything will be explained to you in particular. Okay, so in a manner of overview, that we have to consider a point that regime of Narendra Modi is focused upon the economic integration. So we are using a tool called commercial diplomacy in order to integrate the regions. That is, integrate the neighboring countries into a single unified market. So we are focusing upon the neighbors in order to get resources from the commercial diplomacy. It is the perspective behind the economic integration of the South Asian region, where the stakeholders are India and its neighboring countries. Next, apart from this, besides the neighboring policy under different prime ministership, we also have a comprehensive exclusive policy, that is neighborhood first policy. So the core idea of this neighborhood first policy is Vistarvad nahi Vikasvad. See, it's not about the expansion of influence, expansion of dominance of India over the neighboring countries. It is all about sharing the prospects, creating the awareness creating the awareness of opportunities and growth among the neighboring countries with the efforts of our country. That is the main intent behind the Vistarvad nahi Vikasvad. That is the theme and objective of neighborhood first policy. Acha, fine. What are the core elements of neighborhood first policy? We have three core elements. First one is, in order to expand sphere, that is, expand the influence of India over the neighborhood, that is in a positive intent, and that too it is in a regulator manner, because we have the past where the expansion of influence of India over the neighboring countries has been resulted to the imperialistic view in the eyes of our neighboring countries, deteriorating the relations with them. So we have, the core element of this neighborhood first policy is a regulated expansion of influence of India over the neighborhood countries, and followed by, to maximize the security. India is playing a dominant role as a regional stabilizer in South Asian region. As I told you that during the era of Indira Gandhi, we have played a role of regional security manager in such a way that we have committed ourselves to maximize the security, to stable the destable situations with our efforts in the South Asian region. And finally, to secure economic growth with active participation, proactive engagements, economic engagements with our neighboring countries, and sharing our prospects, our growth prospects of economy with our neighboring countries with proactive engagements. So that is about the secure economic growth. So besides core elements of neighborhood first policy, we have the challenges in this neighborhood first policy in order to implement this policy. What are these challenges? First challenge is we don't have a credible roadmap for political and economic integration, because as I'm talking about, the new trend of maintaining the relations with our neighboring countries is of economic integration, right? So this economic engagement will give a space, will give a room to engage India with the with its neighboring countries on the front of political, that is on the political fronts. Only when I could make you to catch up with an economic hook, economic hook, then that economic hook will give me an opportunity to associate with you on the political trend. So that is the diplomacy behind this, but we don't have a particular, that is a comprehensive and a very exclusive, that is credible roadmap for political and economic integration with our neighbors. That's the first challenge. The second challenge is, see, as I told you that India has shared the ethnicity, civilizational prospects and cultural prospects with our neighboring countries, as we have been unified from the ages. Right now we have been differentiated, that is divided into the territory, but we are unified in the culture, because whatever the religion where our neighborhood countries preach and practice, we can see the presence of that religion, we can see the presence of that language, we can see the presence of that clothing, that food and that culture and practices in our countries also. But we lack of fostering that point in the engagement, in the bilateral engagement of diplomacy. So we have to foster this point, that is, see, whenever the India has got the opportunity to engage with the bilateral, engage with the neighboring countries bilaterally, it should stress upon the shared ethnicity. It should stress upon that we have been unified, and now we have been separated on the basis of territory, but we have been unified culturally and civilizational prospects from the ages. We have to stress that. So, but we lack that. So that's the second challenge. And finally, so as I told you that the commerce, the culture and the connectivity, three C's will play a dominant role in the implementation and success of this policy called Neighborhood First policy. But there is no plan to boost that. There is no plan to boost commerce, culture and connectivity. So let us hope that these challenges will be sorted out in order to make these Neighborhood First policy effective. So what are the elements to be needed to make Neighborhood First policy successful? First element is, whatever the commercial and political engagements we are doing on a bilateral theatre with the neighboring countries should be separated. Because see, we cannot give a relation between the commercial and political diplomacy on the basis of either supplementary or complementary, because both are somewhat, in some situation, both could have a diverse edges where you could not meet the two ends at once. So that is why we need a separate mechanism. We should need a separate institutional establishments which are dealing commercial relations and political relations, that is commercial diplomacy and political diplomacy with our neighbors. Okay, so that would give an effective edge in maintaining our neighborhood relations. Okay, and the next one is, we have to invest our political diplomacy. So see, political diplomatic capital, what I am talking about is, this political diplomatic capital is also an asset, because see, India, as we got the independence from 1947, but we have been blessed with democracy, and India is the largest successful democracy, and we have that asset, that is the credible brand called, we got the largest successful democracy. So we need to use that brand, okay, to engage with our neighbors bilaterally. Okay, so we have to invest that political diplomatic capital in order to resolve the issues with our neighboring countries on a bilateral engagements. In a bilateral engagements, fostering that, see, the democratic dispute resolution mechanism will always works, even though it takes time. Okay, besides this democratic engagement, that is democratic resolution mechanism, okay, anything else will be definitely paralyzed at some extent. Okay, so the best and the comprehensive and the effective way of resolving the bilateral issues with our neighboring countries is to step into the lines of democracy only. That is, we have already got the asset that in the form of political diplomatic capital, we have to invest that in order to sort out the issues with our neighboring countries. And we also have to rework the treaties with the Bhutan and the Nepal, because the friendship treaties with Bhutan and Nepal has got some bottlenecks, and these should be these should be addressed, and these should be sorted out, as those bottlenecks and the friendship treaty and the prospects will be explained to you separately in the Indo-Nepal class and in the Indo-Bhutan class. But before that, I just want to give you an introduction that in this treaty we have made the countries like Bhutan and Nepal to feel insecure, that we have made like a country like Nepal to feel low when compared to with our country, making itself to go into the trap of insecurity. Okay, so this is the perspective behind why these Nepal and Bhutan, though they are almost engaged with India geographically, politically, culturally mainly. Okay, but we could not able to make a unified engagement. We also have the bilateral issues with those countries. Why? Because of these bottlenecks in this treaty. We have to rework on these bottlenecks in this treaty, and we should not view Nepal and Bhutan as the protectorates of India, because I told you geographically they are almost merged with India only. Like on the eastern front, if we look at the Nepal and Bhutan, okay, geographically those are merged with our country, okay, but at the same time there is a prejudice that India is viewing them as the protectorates, geographical protectorates from China annexation. So it is equally necessary to, I mean, scrap away that prejudice only by officially recognizing, officially announcements or officially recognizing the sovereignty and independence of Bhutan and Nepal. Okay, find more resulting that no more view of Nepal and Bhutan as a protectorates of India in this 21st century. Okay, and we should also work on long-term solutions and end the negativity atmosphere with our beloved brother called Pakistan. So these are the elements should be taken up to sort it out the challenges in this neighborhood first policy. And finally, the concluding this concept neighborhood first policy, the neighborhood first policy fosters the economic integration, and that economic integration which I told you that it will create a room for political integration. Okay, that is political negotiation, and these political negotiation will be resulted to the dispute resolutions with our neighboring countries. So whatever the, I mean, there is a link between the neighborhood first policy to the economic integration, and this economic integration is leaving the space for the political negotiation, and this political negotiation is acting as the base for the dispute resolutions with our neighboring countries. And moreover, in order to manifest our commitment towards this neighborhood first policy, we have already shown our commitment, we have already expressed our commitment in the form of launching the SARC satellite, whereby the technological prospects out of SARC satellite will be shared with our neighbors. Okay, so this is an apt act to implement this policy to show our intent for that is India is open for the proactive engagements bilaterally with our neighboring countries. So guys, this is all about the India's neighborhood policy. Before ending up the class, the next class would be on Indo-Bhutan relations. So from that Indo-Bhutan, I am going to complete the sub-module of India's neighborhood policy like Indo-Bhutan, Indo-Nepal, Indo-Sri Lanka, like all in all those manner I will be completing. So please don't forget to follow me for the further updates. So please, before ending this class, I just want to remind you, please do follow this 5-mantra platform so as to make yourself very apt and comfortable in your UPSC civil service preparation. Thank you.